She wakes suddenly. Her eyes open into the dim light of early morning. For a moment, nothing moves. Her hand touches the ground. Cold, empty. She pauses. Her fingers move across the earth as if something should still be there. Nothing. She's awakened fully now. The place where he lay is bare. The forest is still. The air is cold. She's running through the forest now, without thinking, her bare feet ignoring the thorns and pebbles that torment her feet. She looks around quickly. Left, right, behind her. No movement, no sound. She keeps moving. Swami? No answer. Louder now. Swami! The forest gives nothing back. From the Mahabharata, Satu supta prabuddha cha nalam nadhya gacchata vilalap tada dukkhat pranay priyataram patim. She awoke and did not find Nal. And she lamented for her husband, who was dearer to her than life. She does not remain still. She steps forward, then another. Her voice breaks through the silence. She had shared her garment with Nal, and now she is not clothed adequately for the cold. But she ignores her own plight, calls again, louder this time. No answer. She keeps moving. There is no direction she understands, but she is no longer standing where she woke. He is gone. She does not know why, but she has already begun to follow him. She keeps moving. Not in a straight line, but in the direction she last felt him. Her eyes stay on the ground. Leaves are disturbed. A faint line through the grass. She steps toward it. Then again, faster now. Swami, please answer, where are you? Her voice cuts through the trees. No answer. A branch catches her garment and rips it further. She pulls free and keeps moving. The marks are not clear. They break, reappear. She shifts direction slightly, trying to follow what she cannot fully see. Does not stop. Her steps quicken. The ground dips suddenly. She stumbles. Catches herself with her hands. Rises immediately. Looks around again, as if he might appear if she turns fast enough. Swami? Louder now. The sound travels and disappears. From the Mahabharata. Ha heti vilapanti sa nalam, marga manvagat, vananteshu vichinvana, dukkha shoka samanvita. Crying out in grief, she follows the path of Nal, searching through the forest, overcome with sorrow. She focuses ahead, squinting at a faint light ahead. Her heart rate quickens. Maybe that's her Swami. She moves toward it. But the trail has ended. And so has the forest. She sees the outline of a city ahead. She continues towards it. She finally emerges out of the forest into the city. And when she finally reaches people, something unexpected happens. Teta drishtva vishalakshim rupena pratimam striyam, ashcharyam paramam jagmuhu, kasyayam devatapama. They saw her with large eyes and an incomparable beauty. They were greatly astonished. Whose is this woman who appears like a goddess? Not because she announces herself, not because she demands help, because of what she carries even now. Dignity. She hears them, every word, but she does not answer. She does not step forward. She does not name herself. She remains where she is, standing between what she has lost and what they are trying to see. The question remains unanswered. She has reached the kingdom of Chedi and is taken to see the queen. She is brought into the royal house, not as someone they understand, but as someone they cannot ignore. From the Mahabharata. Sa che dirajgriham prapya ragya sampujita tada avsat tatra kalyani natmanam prakatayat. She reaches the royal house of Chedi. She is received by the queen. She is given place there. The queen looks at her, not with confusion, but with attention. She does not ask everything at once. She does not press her. She allows her to remain. Shelter is given. Space is given. She accepts and says nothing. She does not give her name. She does not speak of Nal. She does not speak of Vidarbha. She remains there, inside the palace, unknown. She has reached safety, but she has not revealed herself. She remains in the palace, not as one who has arrived, but as one who does not declare why she is there. She is given a place among the attendants. She accepts it. No hesitation, no correction. She does what is asked, moves where she is directed, speaks only when required. Questions come, small ones. Where she is from, who her people are. She answers little. Enough to remain, not enough to be known. Days pass. She is seen, but not understood. She does not draw attention to herself, but she does not disappear into the background either. There is something in the way she carries herself, not altered by her place. She does not claim rank, but she does not lose it either. Those around her notice, not all at once, but over time. Something does not match. The work she does and the way she does it are not the same. But no one presses further. She remains inside the palace, unnamed, unrevealed. She has concealed herself completely. But concealment does not remove who she is. It only delays when it will be seen. And then recognition comes through knowledge. And that knowledge arrives from outside. Her father has already acted. From the Mahabharata. Brahmanan preshayamas bhimah sarvasu dishasuh damayantim parimargadhvam nalam cha nripasattamam. King Bhima sends Brahmins in all directions to search for Damayanti and Nal, and one of them reaches Chedi. Sudeva. He enters the palace, and he sees her. From the text, Sudevo nama brahmanastam dadarsha yashasvinim, sevyamanam narasreshthe natmanam prakatayantim. The Brahmin Sudeva sees her, in the palace, still not revealing who she is. He does not react immediately. He observes her bearing, her restraint, her composure, even now. And then the text says, Evam vimrishya vividhe karaner lakshaneshchatam. He considers her through reasons and signs. This is the turning point. Recognition does not happen by sight alone. It happens through lakshana. So he approaches her, not publicly, privately. Aham Sudevo Vedarbhi, Bhimasya Vachanadragyastvaman Veshtu Mihagatah. I am Sudeva, O Princess of Vidarbha, sent by King Bhima to find you. Now she knows. And for the first time since the forest, she is no longer alone in knowledge. She responds. The text describes her, overcome with emotion. But still, this is not public. And then, someone notices. Sunanda. She sees Damayanti weeping with the Brahmin. And she informs The Queen Mother. Now the Queen enters. Not to recognize, to question. Who is she? Whose daughter? Whose wife? And now the truth is spoken. Sudeva answers. This is Damayanti, daughter of Bhima of Vidarbha, wife of Nal. But the text does not rely only on words. It gives proof. A natural mark between her brows, hidden by dust. It is cleaned, and it appears. Recognition is now complete. Only now does the queen speak differently. Bhaginya Duhita Mesi, you are my sister's daughter. Notice the order. First identification, then relationship. Not the other way around. Now the situation changes. She cannot remain hidden anymore. And the next step comes from her. She has been protected here, but her children are in Vidarbha. And that is where she must go. The queen agrees, not sending her away, but restoring her to where her life continues. And from the text, Tato Vidarbhan Preshita Sasah Brahmanena Ve. She is sent to Vidarbha with the Brahmin, not lost, not rediscovered, but recognized at the right moment. And that is how this phase ends, not with revelation, but with confirmation. Because in this story, truth is not declared, it is identified. He walks alone. No kingdom, no companion, no direction. The man who once ruled now moves through the forest with nothing. And this matters, because his fall did not end when he lost the dice game. It continues. From the Mahabharata, he wanders alone through the forest. And then something appears. Ath Nagam Mahakayam Dadarshavanamadhyagam Satam Mokshayamas Dahyamanam Mahavisham. He sees a great serpent in distress and he frees it. Now stop here. He has nothing, and yet he still acts. Not as a king, but as someone who does what is required. And then the serpent responds, not with gratitude, with a bite. Satam dashtva nalam nago rupam, tasya vyanashayat. The serpent bites Nal and destroys his form. Krisham kutil vaktram cha babhuv sa naradhipa. He becomes thin, distorted, unrecognizable. And the serpent speaks, Bahuk iti namasya karishyami naradhip. You will now be known as Bahuka. Understand what just happened. He has lost his identity. Not symbolically, literally. Now ask yourself, why would the story do this? Because as long as he remains Nal, he carries everything that destroyed him. His past, his fall, his attachments. And now, all of that is removed. But the text adds something else. Kalistu ten dansen pidyamano vyavasthita. Kali, within him, is afflicted by that bite. Not gone, not removed, afflicted. This is critical, because the story does not show sudden purification. It shows pressure. Something that was inside him can no longer remain undisturbed. And from here, his path changes. Not upward immediately, but differently. He is no longer a king. He is Bahuka. And from this point, he must rebuild. Without recognition, without identity, only through what he does next. And that is where the real transformation begins. He does not return to a throne. He does not seek recognition. He goes to Ayodhya. This movement is not assumed. It is instructed. From the Mahabharata, Gaccha Rajan Nitah Suto Bahukoha Miti Bruvan Sameep Mitu Parnasya Sahi Vedakshanai Punam Ayodhyan Nagarim Ramya Adyavai Nishadheshwara Satekshar Hridayam Data Rajashvo Hridayenavai. Go from here saying, I am Bahuka, a charioteer. Go to Rituparna. He knows the science of dice. He will give you that knowledge in exchange for your knowledge of horses. So Nal goes. Atmanas tato Ayodhyan jagam nagarin tada Rituparnam sa rajan mupatasthe sudukhitah. He reaches Ayodhya and approaches King Rituparna. Bhritim cha sa dado chasya sarathyena niyojitah. He is given employment as a charioteer. Now stop here. The text does not say he is restored. It does not say he is purified. It shows something simpler. He works. Later, he is described like this. Rituparnasya purusho bahuko nam namatah. Sutastasya narendrasya virupo hrasva bahukah. Shigrayaneshu kushalo mrishtakarta cha bhojane. He is called Bahuka. He serves the king. He is misshapen, short-armed, skilled in driving swiftly, and skilled in preparing food. This matters because the story does not rebuild him through speeches. It rebuilds him through function. He becomes useful again. He handles horses. He drives. He serves. And when the moment comes, Tata Pariksha Mashwanam Chakre Rajans Bahukah. He examines the horses. Tata Sadashvamsh Chaturaha Kulashila Samanvitan. Yojayamas Kushalo Javayuktan Rathe Nala. He selects 4 horses and yokes them to the chariot. That is what the text shows. Not restoration. Stability. Not transformation. Control. Returning. And that is where the path turns. She has returned to Vidarbha. Not restored by circumstance, but steady after loss. Now ask yourself, what does she do next? Does she wait? No. She acts. From the Mahabharata. Brahmanan prahasa bhuyo deshan sarvan prayatan nalam mam vacho brut yatra kutra sthito bhavet. She sends Brahmins again to all regions. Speak my words to Nal, wherever he may be. And this time, she gives them words. Words that will be spoken publicly. Words that anyone may hear. But only one man can recognize. From the text. Kachit smrati vai natha, striyam tan dina chetanam, ya supta vana madhyasthe, tyakta ten mahatmana. Does that Lord remember that woman who while asleep in the forest was abandoned by him? Satvam pratikshate nath, tvai jivati shashvati, ananyatvadgata nityam, katham nutvam na buddhyase. She still waits for you. She lives only in you. She has not turned to another. Why do you not understand this? This is not a name, but it is precise. Anyone may hear it, but only one man can fail to ignore it. And then she takes the next step. Swayamvaram dvitiyam me iti lokan avedayat. She makes it known. I will hold a second Swayamvar. The text does not explain the intent. It shows the act. The announcement spreads across kingdoms. And far away, in Ayodhya, it reaches a king. Shrutva tu tadvacha, Raja Rutuparno Mahipati, Gantum echat tada shighram Vidarbhan Ripasattama. Hearing this, King Rutuparna decides to go immediately to Vidarbha. Now the constraint appears: distance, time. He cannot reach without speed. And so he turns to his charioteer. A man no one fully understands. A man without a past. A man without a face. Bahuka. And in that moment, two paths that have been moving separately begin to align. She has spoken. He is about to move. And what was hidden is about to come into view. Not by chance, but because she did not remain still. She set something in motion. And now it is coming toward her. The question is no longer, where is Nala? The question now is, when he arrives, will he be recognized?